You're living in a time loop.
A twist in the fabric of space where time becomes a loop. Where time becomes a loop. Where time becomes a loop.
Hello friends and welcome back to ReddX, your source for the freshest daily Reddit content anywhere on the internet. Promise, swearsies, it's just a fact, and it's totally science. Go ahead and look it up. Today we're jumping into r/LegbeardStories. I mean, technically it's from r/ReddX reads, but it is a Legbeard story nonetheless. It doesn't seem like your stereotypical Legbeard story just from the title alone, but I guess we will just have to see how much cringe we can derive from it. It is a very long post, but I really like the long posts. You can make a nice beefy video and, you know, just have one story extremely in depth rather than just mixing a whole bunch of stuff together and seeing how it goes. So big thanks to this anonymous user for the story. I hope that if you guys have some stories to share, you'll go hit up r/ReddX reads and tell them to me, and you might just see them on the channel. But friends, with all of that out of the way, let's get some other plugs and disclaimers going, and then we will jump right into this Legbeard story. The kind Legbeard. Really? I guess anything's possible. Howdy. I still think about this a lot, and after listening to ReddX read a bunch of tales, I realized that this might actually be fitting. Although, if it does get read, please leave me anonymous. A lot of people can recognize my username. I'm just here to share my story. Ain't no glory with it. I respect that, dude. And so I shall respect your wishes. The story opens very early, around her and me being 8 years old. We were childhood friends, and we met because we both had mental disorders of our own. While I carried around a stuffed toy for comfort, we were both socially inept. For this, we were both bullied, and we became friends over that. For a long time, we were happy, but I acknowledged the problems very early, though I didn't mention them and they weren't deal breakers. I'm the sort of person that I get punched in the gut and will still give you a thumbs up. I just couldn't break off a friendship over it. I didn't like to leave my house because of my strong anxieties, feel that. Even as a child, it made me uncomfortable just stepping out the front door, so very often she would stay the night at my house instead. It took about a year or so before I would stay at her house. The instant that I entered, I could smell it, and swiftly I was surrounded by a mass of dogs, like more dogs than I could count. That's a lot of dogs. It sounds like heaven in theory, but in practice, it's probably not. It was so loud and smelled far worse than I could possibly explain. I just put on a smile, and she explained that these dogs were all her father's, but it was her chore to clean up after them, except none of the dogs fancied baths, and they also weren't potty trained. Oh God. It was completely up to her, 100% her job, to pick up the poop of 20 plus dogs. Poor kiddo, gotta potty train your dog, what's going on here? So that explained the smell. I voiced my worries about the beds, and she quickly made sure to say that the dog stayed on the floor. So it wasn't a big problem for me. I was only a kid after all, so germs didn't exist as far as I was concerned. Ah, wonderful childhood. After a while of playing and watching cartoons on our bed, we decided that it was time to rest and went to sleep. The next morning, I awoke to something awful. My body covered in bites. Itchy, horrible little bites. I wasn't stupid. I knew they were from bugs. A fear hit me and I started looking around before she woke up, and my worst fear was confirmed. I flipped over the pillow and saw bloody spots, and when I looked at the cabinet beside the bed, I saw the dead bodies of bed bugs that I didn't notice before. Beardos and bed bugs, man. Goes together like grapes and ketchup, chocolate and spinach. Peanut butter and jelly if you're a normal person that didn't read that book in elementary school. Y'all remember that book? Nobody knows what I'm talking about. I made my way to the bathroom and checked my clothes, only to pull out living bugs that had tried to take up nesting. I was so uncomfortable, so disgusted, so scared, that I made up an excuse that my mom wanted me home before she went to work, and then I texted my mom begging to be picked up. And so it began. For years, it was the same story. She would invite me over, I would obtain some excuse or just leave it at ghosting. But the times that I couldn't, I found myself lying awake all night, in a war against the bugs that would eye me as their target. And yet, as the morning would come, I would still find bites. God, did you not inform your friend or something? I guess that's hard, that's a little kid thing. They're kind of shy to talk about stuff like that. Eventually, her family was reported for animal hoarding, forcing them to rehome a bulk of the dogs, leaving them with only 12 of them, with pregnant ones bringing babies. Oh, God. The hoarding became more extensive, to the point that some rooms were just completely inaccessible. By the time we were 13, I'd stopped staying the night, but still allowed myself to visit during the day. One day, she suddenly stopped the game that we were playing and told me that she liked me romantically, and she was bisexual, so it didn't matter if I was a girl. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I couldn't say yes. Not only was her living situation just uninhabitable to me, but I could only like her as a friend after all these years that we had spent as just friends. I didn't mind that she had a crush on me either. It was flattering, but at the time I was still figuring everything out, and when she confessed, I decided that I was probably asexual and I wasn't interested in anything or anyone. I made sure to explain the second and third reasons, and she took it in an understanding way. Oh, well, that's good at least. Don't flip that over on me. I hope she stays understanding and this is not a manipulation tactic. There was a relief for me. I didn't want to strain my closest friendship over something like that, but it wasn't over. Oh God, it never is. A few days later, I got harassing messages over Facebook from Legbeard's sister, making sure to call me out on my mental illness, saying,
"You're definitely mentally ill to reject someone like her."
To put it nicely, she didn't say mentally ill. I disregarded all the messages until she blocked me herself. Nevertheless, it just would not end. The next time I visited, her sister pulled me aside on the porch to tell me,
"Legbeard's way out of your league anyway. Look at you. You're so fat. You have 2 chins. I don't care if you have autism or anything. You need to reconsider her."
By the way, I wasn't fat when I was a child. Slightly overweight, but this one comment would soon change a lot about how I saw myself. Poor kids, man. I don't want to get off on a tangent, but it's like, you send these angels out into the world and everybody around them will just end up fucking them up. You gotta be super careful with your words and how you talk to kids. It seems like Legbeard's sister is the actual Legbeard here. The conversation is vague after all these years, but I do remember that clearly. I had stood there for God knows how long in silence, just allowing her to beat me down in any way that she saw fit. After that, I stopped visiting as much, if at all. Legbeard apologized profusely for her sister, but I still refused to visit her house. I said that it was because of that, but the bedbugs played a huge part, and I was relieved that I had a solid excuse, so she would come over to my house instead. Before I go on, I should clarify that Legbeard did not look like the typical idea of a neckbeard. She was very scrawny when we were teenagers, and pretty tall actually, but because of her living situation, she smelled completely vile, and her hair was just grease central. She had to cut it after some years because it was just too mangled and dirty to care for, making it short, but still a horrible, dirty mess. God damn, dude, this is child abuse. Like, they took the dogs away, they should have taken the kids too. Really fucked up. It was often hard to even stand near her, and many times I offered her our shower or even just the swimming pool, so she'd at least get some water on her in some way, but she always refused without saying why, leaving me to struggle with being in the same room as her. The best that I could explain the scent is like wet dog scent, but kind of smooth and with a hint of garlic. It was the sort of smell that made your eyes water and your mouth dry. I wasn't sure if she didn't know about her smell or just didn't care. She probably didn't know, dude. She lives with it every day. That nose blindness is real. When we were around 14, she came over to my house for a final time before we moved out of state. I could put up with the smell. We wouldn't be seeing each other for a while after all. The first thing that I did was offer her a snack, trying to be a good yet super awkward host. It's the thought that counts. I first offered turkey sandwiches since they were easy to throw together, but she said that she was vegan now. So instead, I suggested a salad since that was also easy. But again, she said no. When I asked what she wanted, she said chips. In her own words,
I only eat junk food now.
that confused and muddled my 14-year-old brain, but okay, who am I to question it? If she wanted chips, I guess I'd get her some chips. So we sat in the living room, eating Doritos, while making a grand scenario of Littlest Pet Shop, our favorite toy since we were little. Are Doritos vegan? So after a quick Google foo, it has been determined that Doritos aren't vegetarian or vegan anyways. They use animal-derived rennet in the cheese flavoring, which is a complex set of enzymes produced in the stomach of ruminant mammals. Chymosin, its key component, is a protease enzyme that curdles the casein in milk, which is, I guess, what they're doing to get that delicious cheese flavoring that Doritos have and so many other flavored chips don't. That's why they the biggest, because they the best. Kind of outing myself as a neckbeard with my love for Doritos, but god damn it, it's just amazing and I love it. Now, back to the story. I'm getting off on like a lot of tangents. I wasn't much to play with toys, even as a child. I loved Littlest Pet Shop because I had so many pieces for it that I could make grand scenarios in giant cities and then sit there and admire my work. Legbeard, on the other hand, would rather just play, so she insisted that I join in and stop watching her roleplay with herself, which I did. So I took one of the animals and I approached hers. Immediately it was made creepy as she gave the usual
Hello.
with her toy, followed by,
You're really cute. Do you want to go on a date?
doggy date. This completely took me off guard and made me uncomfortable, so without my thinking, my animal said, no thanks, stranger danger, and walked away. Which she definitely did not like. She stopped playing and pouted, telling me
To play it right because she wanted us to roleplay a date.
I said I didn't want to, which escalated into a small argument before we both gave up and just watched TV instead. Ah, come on, you guys are friends. Can't you go on a date as friends or something? For our final hangout, I should have seen the signs of what would come, but I didn't. She was still really nice, but as we grew even older, it would become even more apparent what the problem was. We didn't see each other again until we were around 17 and 18. I'd gone back to visit, and I wasn't super excited to see her again, but I was still looking forward to it, at least a little. I was staying at a family member's house, and she told me that she'd come pick me up and spend the night. Immediately, I gave my concerns, only to learn that she had moved and was living somewhere new. So my relief grew, thinking that that would be the end of the bed bugs. You don't think they brought those mattresses with them? I don't know. When I opened the door to greet her, I stopped immediately when I saw what was before me. She had become a full-fledged Legbeard in that short time apart. Her scrawny figure was now incredibly overweight, complete with rolls, clothes that were obviously too small, ragged, unwashed hair, and literally carrying a chip bag. That's one of her accessories. I knew what I was getting into, but I still went with her anyways. As for her car, as expected, it was filled to the brim with trash and smelled of cigarettes. When I opened the door, piles of trash fell out onto the sidewalk like a mini waterfall, and she quickly grabbed what she could and threw it into the back seat. A lot faster and more mobile than I expected. Boy, she can move when she's embarrassed. At least she is embarrassed, to be fair. It was already off the sidewalk and my seat was cleared off before I even registered what I was about to do. Begrudgingly, I got into her Beardmobile and we headed off to her house. The ride there was fairly pleasant, at least. She told me everything that I needed to catch up on. Babies born in her family, the passing of a few of her dogs, and that she had some cats now. She still lived with her parents, but her mother was ill, and her father needed leg amputation due to diabetes. Jesus. She'd taken on the brunt of the housework. In the years that we were apart, I had ended up finding a boyfriend, now fiancé. It took a while, but when I realized my feelings, I had understood that I wasn't asexual, but in fact bisexual and just waiting for the right person. I danced around the topic when she asked about anything new in my life. I didn't want to make her feel bad or think that I was lying and just didn't want to properly reject her back then. So I ended up just never bringing it up. That's never the right answer. Communication is the key, OP. The faster you address it, the easier it is. When we arrived at her new house, I was greeted again by dogs and watched by multiple cats. I didn't bother trying to count the animals because I was more focused on just looking around. The new house was much smaller, and the kitchen filled to the brim and unusable by a mountain of dirty dishes and being covered in black, rotting food. Ooh, there's the cringe. Please don't. I couldn't tell if I was nose blind or if it was really so old that it stopped having a smell, because it honestly didn't smell that bad. More so like a grandmother's house scent. Not my grandma's house. That is concerning. But when she walked in behind me, she suddenly sprayed air freshener into the living room like it was going out of style. So with my eyes now stinging, she explained that it was hot in the house and the animals started to smell bad, so she'd need to spray it rather than opening a window that they could jump out of. With a quick look, I could tell that it wasn't just the animals, but rather their feces, for which the floor was once again covered. Oh, I don't know how people live like this, man. This is madness. I mentioned that as well, trying my best to lightly hint at the troubling way that she was living, but she just waved that off too. That had become quite a common occurrence in our friendship, with me trying to bring up something bad and her just downplaying it.
I'll clean it when I'm ready. They go so much every day. I'm too lazy right now.
I was shocked, appalled, disgusted, anything else that you could think of, being told that she would leave the ground just covered in animal shit. At least as a child, she would pick it up instantly. Why not get a trainer to potty train them or let them outside, I suggested.
A trainer's too expensive, and they could run away. They don't even like baths. They wouldn't listen.
They still don't like baths?
Nope. They always struggle when I give them a bath, so I just don't bother.
The vicious cycle continues, dude. After she explained herself, I couldn't believe it. She never even bathed a single one of those animals throughout their entire lives. I knew it probably shouldn't have been so shocking to me, but it still managed to be, somehow. She even mentioned it when we were little, but I didn't expect that she was still thinking that way as a legal adult, that she just couldn't bathe the dogs because they didn't want one. That's part of bathing a dog. You gotta hold them until they learn they can't run away, and then they'll just kind of stand there and take it. When one of the dogs jumped on my leg, I reached down to pet him, but the fur was silky and not in a soft way. It felt like I was just petting an oil slick, and my skin crawled. Ugh, poor dog. After a small chat of nothing important in particular, she invited me to her room where she asked
if I liked anime.
Ah, boy. I said that I did, and that was true. I was quite the weeb myself, and I had watched plenty on my own, so it seemed like a good idea. Seemed being the operative word. Now, her room was very, very small. So small that it could only fit her bed and a single TV on a single shelf. And you could only get onto the bed by climbing up the front by the feet side, so it was definitely a tight squeeze. But hey, at least we'd be so busy watching anime that I wouldn't need to focus on being pushed up against her large body. She put on a random show that I'd seen before. I think it was Black Butler, but that part didn't matter too much because she started talking as soon as she put it on. Legbeard.
You're looking really thin now. Are you dieting?
OP? Oh, not really. Rather surprising she noticed it. I dropped about 40 to 50 pounds since we last spoke, and I had a lot of body issues after what her sister had mentioned, struggled with a few disorders on my own, making it difficult to eat or even acknowledge my actual weight. So it was instantly uncomfortable just thinking about how underweight I was. She smiled and poked my stomach though. Legbeard,
You look good though. I wish I had your body. As you can see.
she gestured to her large gut, making it impossible to ignore. Legbeard,
There's been a lot of stress going on. I don't know.
I didn't expect our hangout to suddenly get deep and emotional. So, being the awkward person that I was, I laughed it off and agreed with her, only to immediately pull out my phone for the good old introvert pretending to be focused to avoid anything uncomfortable 101. Finger guns. I didn't realize that she was looking over my shoulder until she asked about one of my notifications when I pulled down the tab, which was definitely written in a way that would be impossible not to take as romantic. Oopsie. Great, I thought. I couldn't lie to Legbeard. She was too smart and just knew me too well. I was just hoping that we could have avoided that topic. Finally, I explained the truth, that I didn't think that I was asexual anymore, and I had found a boyfriend. Her simple,
Oh,
was enough to tell me that she'd been hurt, and I didn't really know what to say about it after that. For about an hour, we sat in silence watching anime, the awkward tension rising so much that I couldn't focus at all. Suddenly, her stomach growled, like actually growled, over the volume of the TV. And she quickly jumped up, saying,
she'd order some pizza.
which she did, and we ate in the living room, watching some game show with her father that had come out to us. For the rest of the night, we didn't say a word until it was finally bedtime, and she said I could sleep on the couch since her bed was too small for the two of us now. Bro, putting your guest in the doghouse? I mean, it was true. We weren't the tiny kids that we used to be, but I was also feeling that it was probably also because of her newly learned information. I didn't argue about it anyways. As much as I cared about her, she just smelled really bad. The house went quiet, and I texted my boyfriend for a little bit because I couldn't sleep, keeping him updated on the trip. It was a good comfort after finding myself in my current situation. And then he mentioned something that I'd almost forgotten about, and I was relieved that he did. I told my boyfriend about Legbeard before, and explained how she had had bed bugs when we were kids. When he asked if she still did, I couldn't give an answer. I had assumed that they were gone because she moved houses, but now that they were on my mind again, I needed to stay up and make sure, just like when I was a kid. God, this is so horrifying. You're living in a time loop. As it started getting later, I was unfortunately reliving the horrors as I was fending myself off from the bloodsuckers, getting up every so often to pull them out of my clothes. The night became less enjoyable as our casual texting turned into my crying to my boyfriend, just not knowing what to do. They had carried the bugs over from the old house, and after all of these years, never gotten rid of them. God, dude, how? How do people live like this? I finally found myself snapping in the middle of the night when I pulled one out from the rim of my underwear and mentally declared that I would not be staying at her house anymore, no matter what. I just couldn't take it. The way she didn't bathe, hoarded animals that she didn't take care of, allowed bedbugs to live rent-free, and just granted her house to become such a state. Around 5 a.m., with the sun barely peaking, standing in a room with dog poop covering the floor, flies in the air, and bedbugs crawling across the couch. Jesus. I texted him, I am never doing this again. Legbeard slept in very late, and when she still wasn't up by noon and I was pouting on the couch with her family, Legbeard's ill mother offered to drive me back to where I was staying, to which I of course agreed. The drive back was silent for the most part, until I noticed something moving in my sweater, which I had balled up on my lap, and I pulled a bed bug off of it. Her mother looked over, a bit shocked, and asked me if they'd been bothering me last night. I couldn't give a proper answer, and instead just awkward laughed about it after I had killed it. I didn't see her the rest of my visit, and it wasn't until I flew back to my state that Legbeard started texting me again. telling me about
how much she missed me and wanted to see me again. That she was sorry about getting upset about my boyfriend, and that she could fly to my place next time instead.
my mother's excited about the visit, but she doesn't know what I do, and I'm dreading that visit happening. I don't entirely blame her for what she became. She had some untreated mental illness, and her family was too sick to properly care for her at a young age. To this day, I still struggle with eating, and I'm still losing weight. But I'm working really hard to eat my entire plate when I get meals. As for Legbeard, it's been about 2 years since we last saw each other. She sometimes sends me selfies, showing that she's getting even bigger, or texts me that
she still wants to visit.
Every so often I'll get an odd text along with them, which I've come to ignore. Some being,
I still have feelings for you if you and your boyfriend ever break up.
Or sending a photo of a rash in an unsavory place. God.
Check this out. R.I.P. one of her dogs.
And repeats this text at least once a month to remind me to feel sad.
Do you think you'd love me if I wasn't so ugly?
God, what a mess. I won't give out too much because some of the creepy ones are personal, and I still have some respect for her even as I type this, but luckily she texts me rarely now. I like being able to write all this out for you, but I still can't figure out if she fits Legbeard status now. I guess I'll leave that up to you. Well, living in a filth pile, I guess, wins some Legbeard points. There's also the fact that she's clinging onto a relationship that is quite clearly never going to happen, but I don't know either, man. She's got at least some reasons to be the way that she is, you know? But on the other hand, one of the biggest reasons why she is the way that she is because of simple laziness. If she had taken the time to potty train those dogs, her job would have been so much easier, and it's not that hard to potty train most dogs. Some dogs are super stubborn, but if you get them to do it at least a few times, then they pick up on it pretty quick, you know? Dogs are way smarter than we give them credit for. I definitely understand that the family is, not physically well, but that's about the point where you call in some help, you know what I mean? And they might not have called in a help or hired a maid or anything like that because they're embarrassed about the situation that they're living in. The situation which they've created in 2 different houses now, mind you. So obviously things are not going to improve if OP, stands idly by. But I don't know, how much help can you offer somebody that really doesn't seem to want to help themselves? At the end of the day, I do have to give this one at least some sort of Legbeard stamp. It's about 70% Legbeard, you know? She doesn't have the massive, sense of grandiosity or entitlement that a lot of beards seem to have. But the watching anime, the living in the filth pile, the being lazy, brushing things under the rug, lacking self-awareness in a very extreme way, it's just all beard behavior, you know what I mean? Just like the post title says, she does seem like a kind Legbeard, all things considered, but a kind Legbeard is still a Legbeard, you know what I mean? I think the whole situation made me more sad than anything, you know? I don't understand how somebody could just let this happen and be okay with it. I'd make the argument that both of her parents suffer from some mental illness because this is not normal. This is not a normal environment for a child to grow up in. And the fact that she kind of just thinks it's okay means that vicious cycle will continue unless she gets some help for herself. So I would definitely encourage her, OP, to go to some sort of therapy, at least look into changing some things about her life. But I know it's kind of a lost cause. Like if somebody doesn't want help, then they're not going to take it no matter how much you try to push them into it. You can lead a horse to water and all that, but you can't make them stop drinking Mountain Dew. A really somber story, you know. I definitely hope the best for OP because it seems like she's having her share of troubles, and I definitely hope the best for Legbeard. I mean, I hope you'll give us an update at some point because you are both beautiful people, and it's basically the world that has damaged you, and I'm sorry for that. I hope that you can learn to combat your negative thoughts and at least push back against some of these lies that you've been taught, you know? I suffer from a lot of the same stuff, and my brain feeds me poison all the time, and I basically have to take a step back and just say, is that true? You know? I question myself more and more, and it's a good habit to get into, honestly. Sometimes I'm sitting around, working, and my brain tells me, hey, your kids probably hate you because you don't spend enough time with them. And then I'm like, pause. Is that true? Could that possibly be true? And then my son runs in the room and says, I love you, Dad. Look at dinosaurs. And I'm like, yeah, of course he loves me. He's a little angel. He has not been damaged by the world yet. And I'm not going to be the one to damage him. So I scoop him up and I tell him I love him too and blow some raspberries on his stomach, you know. Just the best stress reliever in the world. And once you do the same and get into the habit of questioning your thoughts, you'll find that a lot of those things are not true. And as a result, your brain will start feeding you more hopeful messages. At least that's what happened in my experience. I'm not sitting here trying to be armchair therapist or whatever, but it has worked for me in my own life, at least in some capacity. You know, I still have my days where I can't get out of bed, but any sort of help goes a long way in fixing what was broken. And honestly, as people, neither of you are broken. Maybe a little bent, but not broken, you know? You're young, you're vibrant, you're brilliant. You can definitely overcome these issues, and I hope that you will. I really wish the best for your life. And now, with that heartfelt message out of the way, it's time to shamelessly whore my channel. So, if you guys did enjoy the video, at least in some capacity, I hope that you'll like, comment, and or subscribe. Maybe share it around. Maybe somebody really does need to hear that message at the end. I hope you don't know anybody that's living this way, but if they are, man, get some help for them. You know, nobody deserves that. I also hope you'll check out the links in the description. There's some stuff that wasn't on the splash page from earlier. We've got my personal subreddit, r/ReddX Reads. I think I plugged that about 3 times now. But I didn't plug my wife's channel yet. That's Mr. and Mrs. ReddX. Super cool. She did a gardening blog over there the other day. Showed us around the garden, which is coming up amazingly. She's worked super hard on it for a couple months, so I hope you go show her some love. Oh, and we've also got my Patreon. I can't forget my gorgeous, wonderful, beautiful, generous patrons. Those are the names that you're seeing on the screen right now, and I'd like to thank them all, but specifically ZeroMMX, Lady Nix, Robert Waits, Pope Squid, Rebecca H, Cider Drinker, Tato Ferret, The Last Shinobi, Mark211, Michael Undead, Aaron W, Mitch, John Hero, Josh K, Candy Sora, DigiNZ, Fire Drake, Little Lone Wolf, Lone Island, Shara, Marvelwana, Miss Monday, and Silent Revolver. Thank you guys so much for helping me out monetarily in this fledgling phase of the channel, trying to get it off the ground, see what we can make it, and it really does mean a lot for videos that get demonetized. Probably not going to be this video, but who knows? We might dig into some real shit in the next couple days. You never know what the Neckbeard tales will bring. Obviously, if anybody else can support, that is huge. Just massively, massively appreciated. But if you can't right now, don't sweat it too hard, guys. I just appreciate you coming on through and hanging out with me, and I hope that you'll come on back and hang out with me again tomorrow. In order to do so, you will need to wash your hands. Very, very important. But also take some time out to do something that you personally enjoy today. Something close to your heart. Maybe watching another ReddX video. That's always a good answer. Anyways, I hope you guys will always remember that you are loved, you are worthy, and you definitely, definitely deserve it. I will see you guys in the next one. And until then, friends, bye-bye.